تبارك الذي جعل في السماء بروجا وجعل فيها سراجا وقمرا منيرا. For the benefits of those who do not understand my native language, our khutbah for today is preparing for Ramadan in the best way. My brothers and sisters, indeed, we praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most merciful, the most compassionate, for granting us the opportunity to prepare for the blessed month of Ramadan. This sacred month is a gift from Allah, a chance for us to renew our spiritual connection with Him, to seek forgiveness for our sins, and develop a stronger sense of self-discipline and self-awareness. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us in Surah Al-Baqarah, in the Quran, in Surah Al-Baqarah, chapter 2, verse 183, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. In this noble verse of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu, O you who believe, kutiba alaykum as-siyam. Fasting has been prescribed for you, kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum, as it was prescribed for those before you, la'allakum tattaqun, that you may become pious, that you may attain piety, that you may increase in the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you may have taqwa. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that this fasting that He has told us to fast is something that He has commanded those before you, but those before us. So He's telling us that He commanding us now is the same way He commanded those before us to fast. And why did He say we should fast? He said, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you may attain piety, so that you may increase in the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that you may have taqwa. So He's telling us that the aim of the fasting is to increase our level of iman, is to make us to become people who have fear of Him, people who have taqwa, people who would be pious. So the main aim of fasting is what? Is to increase our level of piety. And one thing we must understand is that while we must have been hearing this verse, even in the past khutbah you heard this verse, it is because it is very important. The main reason for Ramadan is what? Is to fast. That is what we do in the entire, that's from the first day to the 29th or 30th day of Ramadan, we use it to fast. And that is why it is very important for us to know the importance of fasting. We must also know that we need to prepare as Muslims for Ramadan. It is good as a Muslim when you prepare. As a Muslim, when you have plan, it shows that what? It shows that you are a good Muslim, you are a conscious one. It shows that you are a Muslim who is aware of what is happening around them. And that is why it is very important for you as a believer to plan towards Ramadan. And one of the things you must do to plan towards Ramadan, the first thing is what? Is to seek for forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and renew your intention. It is very, very important. Make sure that you have your intention that I want to fast for the sake of Allah. You do not need to alter your intention. It has to be in your mind, because there is no evidence for you to alter your intention verbally. But you have to have it at the back of your mind that I want to fast this month of Ramadan. I want to use it to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I want to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I want to do all things, all righteous deeds. I want to make sure that I please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I want this Ramadan to be better than the previous Ramadan. So this is one of the things you should do before the commencement of Ramadan. You should seek forgiveness from Allah and what? And make your intention clear. You reflect and make sure that what? Make sure that you renew your intention and prepare better spiritually for the Ramadan. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us in Surah Al-Muzammil, chapter 73, verse 20, He said, وَاسْتَغْفِرُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. He said, وَاسْتَغْفِرُوا. He said, and seek forgiveness from Allah. إِنَّ اللَّهَ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. Certainly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is غَفُورٌ Rahim. He is forgiving, the most merciful. So one thing we must understand as believers is that as we are preparing for Ramadan, one of the things you should do is that what? You should seek forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and renew your intention. Make sure that you prepare your intention that you want to fast month of Ramadan. Because when you prepare your intention, whatever the challenges might be, you'll be able to overcome because you're already prepared mentally and spiritually. So it is very, very important. Because when you do not have the intention to fast the month of Ramadan, or the month of Ramadan just came and you just joined the fasting, along the line, when you get stressed, you might get tired of the fasting or feel somehow about it. So, but when you have your intention, when you made up your mind already, when you have it at the back of your mind that you want to worship Allah, you want to get close to Allah, even when the challenges, when it becomes tough, when the Ramadan becomes tough, you'll be able to navigate through. And that is what is very important as well, my brothers and sisters in Deen. Because, and we must also not forget the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where he told us that what? إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. The actions are judged according to intention. So meaning you must make sure that you have your intention before you do anything. Before you start your worship, before you start anything, you must make sure that you have your intention. Because the intention will what? It is to purify what? It is to purify you and make way for you to be able to do that thing, that act of worship diligently. When you have intention to do something for the sake of Allah, you will do it diligently because you know you are doing it for the sake of Allah only. But when you do not have intention, or when you know you do not even have any intention and you just want to do it for doing sake, you might get tired along the line and you might not be able to continue. Or when you do it for the sake of somebody, but the person is not appreciating, you get tired of doing it and you might not want to continue. Or if you have your intention to do it for the sake of Allah, then you'll always want to continue with it. Because because it is only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that can reward you abundantly, unlike any other human or any other entity. Another thing we must prepare as Muslims is to prepare our bodies by adjusting our eating habits and sleeping patterns and physical activities. So you must begin to prepare your body, adjust your eating habits. So you should now begin to understand, this is what I need to eat, this is what I should not eat. You have to control your eating as well. In fact, one of the things you are advised is that when it is time, when you are breaking your fast, you should avoid overeat. People feed too much because they've been fasting all day, so they want to replace all what they've missed in the afternoon. So during the day, because they could not eat during the day, so they want to replace everything. So they overeat to the extent they cannot even stand up to observe Isha or to observe Tarawih. Or you find some people finding it difficult. Some people even go. I've seen a situation, somebody goes to the masjid to observe Tarawih, but as a result of overfeeding, he started vomiting everything he ate. So this is for you to understand the dangers of this. So you have to control your eating habits during this month of Ramadan. You must also, your sleeping patterns, try as much as possible to sleep early so that you can wake up for Qiyamul Layl, so that you can wake up middle of the night to observe Tahajjud. It is very important as Muslims that we must plan or program our sleeping as well during this month of Ramadan so that we can benefit from all the good things, the good deeds and the blessings of Ramadan. Because when you do not plan your sleeping patterns and you sleep late, you will not be able, you find it difficult to wake up for Tahajjud, and you'll be missing all the opportunities to ask Allah for what you've always wanted to ask for during the month of Ramadan. So let us try as much as possible to work on that. Also, physical activities. This is the time that you have to take it easy on yourself. As you are fasting, you must also understand that because you are fasting, you must try as much as possible that you don't engage in activities that will make you to be too tired to even engage in ibadah. Some people will overstress themselves that they will be too tired to do any act of ibadah. Even to observe the 5 daily prayer will become difficult for them. So this is a time that you must plan your activities. Even going out, if you feel going out to a certain place is not necessary, why don't you rest and use that time to what? Use that time to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Use that time to tilawah, to read your Quran. Because when you use all your time to move about, you will not have enough time to read the Quran or to supplicate to Allah, to ask Him for what you want. So it is very important that you plan your activities, because that will make you to be able to make your Ramadan to be very effective on you, and it will make you to be able to benefit from all the blessings of Ramadan. Another thing is that we must make sure that we prepare your schedules. Make sure you prepare, you plan, because when you do not plan your time wisely, you will have a lot of problems, because things will begin to clash. Your ibadah will be affected, and other activities too that you're supposed to do, your means of livelihood, where you go to seek your means, everything will be affected. So you have to plan. You should have a time to wait for tahajjud and a time to stop tahajjud. So you have a time to stand up to prepare your sahur and a time to what? And whether you like it, there is a time to stop your sahur. And one of the things you must also plan with other acts of ibadah that you do, you plan it in a way that it doesn't affect your work. It doesn't affect your business. And you also plan your business in a way that it doesn't affect your opportunity or the chance to do ibadah. So this is a time for you to what? To plan better and plan well. Because the month of Ramadan comes only once. And it is something once in a year, and it is something that we must take advantage of. Because if you see this Ramadan, there's no guarantee that you see the next Ramadan. And that is the reason why you should always take advantage of all the benefits in the month of Ramadan. Another thing, and also we must understand that pre-planning is because the reason why it is important for you to plan your schedule is because of the time for ibadah, most especially Qiyamul Layl. During the month of Ramadan, this is the time that you take advantage. You take advantage of waking up middle of the night to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for something. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us in Surah Al-Muzammil, in chapter 73, verse 6, He said, Inna nashi'atal layli hiya ashaddu wata'an wa aqwamu qila. In this noble verse of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, He said, Inna nashi'atal layli. He said, indeed, the hours of the night, hiya ashaddu wata'an wa aqwamu qila. He said, they are what? They are more effective for what? For concurrence and what? And more suitable for what? So this is a time that you can use the opportunity to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for something. This is a time for you to what? To read the Quran, to read and understand the Quran. So if you wake up middle of the night, you can open your Quran, you can revise, you can read and check. Try to understand the meaning, assimilate it, and try to use it, try to practice it. So this is the time that you can also use to wake up and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for something. Because only few people are blessed with what? With that willingness to wake up middle of the night to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for something. Many people cannot, so many people cannot do it. So it is something that when you plan yourself, you will have the opportunity. If you are finding it difficult to wake up middle of the night to ask Allah to do tahajjud in the normal days, this is the month of Ramadan, you must plan yourself so that you can wake up middle of the night to observe tahajjud. Because if you do not plan yourself, the month of Ramadan will go completely and you will miss tahajjud and you even miss Laylatul Qadr. So you must take advantage of this month and plan yourself, plan your schedule. Another thing that we must also plan is what? Let us prepare our finances. It is very important. People will be asking, why are you preparing your finances? This is Ramadan. After all, it is a month of fast where you abstain from food. So most likely you are going to save. In fact, Ramadan is the month where if care is not taken, you will spend more. Even on feeding. Because on other days, you might not really bother even if you do not eat before you go to bed. But during the month of Ramadan, eating before going to bed becomes obligatory. Becomes compulsory because you have to eat, except if you don't have. Because you've been hungry all day, so you want to break your fast, you want to eat. So this is the time that you have to plan your finances by setting aside a budget. You have to set aside a budget. If you are the type that wants to pay your zakah in the month of Ramadan, you set aside a budget for your zakah. You set aside a budget for your sadaqah. You set aside a budget for other charitable activities that you want to engage in. And it's also, Ramadan is a month of giving. It is a month where you give a lot out so that you can earn reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. By also doing that, you are following the teachings of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because in a hadith, it was narrated about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Based on this hadith, it said, كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أجود الناس بالخير وكان أجود ما يكون في شهر رمضان. He said the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the most generous of people when it comes to charity. He was very generous, but they said, but he was more generous. He was more generous in the month of Ramadan. So this means that what? If you are the type that gives in charity, that does sadaqah, the month of Ramadan is the time you increase your sadaqah. The month of Ramadan is the time you increase your charity and every act of ibadah, every good thing that you do. So if you feed people, maybe you feed 10 people every day, when it is not Ramadan. If it is the month of Ramadan, if you have the ability to feed 20 people, increase it so that you can earn more reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward us for all our acts of ibadah in the month of Ramadan and beyond the month of Ramadan. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this Ramadan better than the previous Ramadan. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us to witness this month of Ramadan with sound health and also with the ability, the finances to be able to enjoy the month of Ramadan. We also ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase us in Iman and make us people who will become better after the month of Ramadan. Not people who will go from being good to being bad after the month of Ramadan. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us. Because I have witnessed a situation where somebody who was not a drunkard, but after Ramadan he started drinking. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us somebody like that. So we should pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes us a better person after the month of Ramadan, not just during the month of Ramadan. And I want you to know that you should not restrict your ibadah, your kindness, your goodness to the month of Ramadan only. Your kindness, your goodness should go beyond the month of Ramadan. And you should begin to prepare now. Prepare yourself mentally, prepare yourself spiritually, prepare yourself always. Any other way you can prepare yourself for the month of Ramadan, you should start from now. Prepare your intention also for the month of Ramadan so that you can have a memorable month of Ramadan, so that you can take advantage of all the benefits, all the blessings of the month of Ramadan. May Allah make it beneficial to us and make us witness many more Ramadan on earth in sound health and with wealth as well. عباد الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون فاذكروا الله العظيم الجليل يذكركم واشكروه على آلائه ونعمه يزدكم ولذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون قوموا إلى الصلاة يرحمكم الله.